Welcome to the Growing People Podcast. I'm your host, John Losey. And what we do with this podcast is take a 360-degree look at how people and groups grow and develop. And today, I'm glad to say that I've got Dr. Chris Cavert with me, and we're going to talk a little bit about team building and creative process. And for those of you who are outside the experiential learning world, because those inside are probably aware of Chris, he is an amazing facilitator. He has created a great resources for experiential educators through his books and his website. He's also just a really good guy who I've known for a little while, and I'm proud to call him my friend. So welcome to the podcast, Chris.
Thanks, everybody. It's great to be here. We've been, John and I have been wanting to talk for a while and working out all the technology things, so it's glad to be up and running.
What makes great facilitation? Maybe 2 or 3 concepts, bullet points.
Okay. Biggest thing for me, my biggest ginormous learning is, and it's actually in a sense a Toltec, if you've heard of the 4 agreements, a Toltec principle of not taking things personally. In my experience, and one of my biggest lessons, and taught to me by one of my favorite mentors, he said, by taking things personally, especially when you're working with at-risk youth, people who are struggling, they're going to project, they're going to blame you, they're going to make you the bad person for doing, and then it made me feel horrible. So what I was doing is I was avoiding learning opportunities so I wouldn't feel horrible. And the advice was, our job is to get them to do that stuff, to be mad at us, to blame us, so that we can help them to understand there are other choices. And that moment of learning for me was very important as you start to get into team building facilitation with any group, to be able to really get what they need to know and they need to learn and they need to feel. You have to be able to create those experiences where that's going to come out, and they may lash out at you. And it's hard to be yelled at we don't want to be yelled at. That's the physiological response. We get all, knotted up inside and a stomach ache. And, so the idea is, don't take it personally. It's their roller coaster ride, so to speak. You're driving. You're not on the ride. You're driving the machine, the roller coaster. You're setting it up. You're turning it on. So the idea of separating yourself is, I think, the biggest one and one of the hardest things to do. So that's one. Another, I think, is more recent, that I've been teaching more and more lately to new facilitators, is trying to understand the difference between working on a concept and working on a behavior. So for example, concepts, people will come in and they'll have an objective, almost any group. We have a hard time communicating with each other. There's some lack of communication issues. We're not listening, we're not understanding each other. So there's some sort of communication issue. To me, that's a concept. That's a big word, we call that. Behaviors, if we can focus on the behaviors of communication. For instance, one behavior is more than one person talking at the same time. That's something we can see and hear. These are observable. These are behaviors. Now, if a group says they're having trouble communicating with each other, the only problem they might have is talking at the same time, because they're missing information. So by identifying the behaviors within the concept that they're struggling with, then as a facilitator and a program planner, you can choose activities that specifically target communication, where they're going to be talking to each other because they want to work on communication. So then those behaviors can come out, and you can observe the behaviors, and hopefully the group observes those same behaviors, and you're encouraging them to look at the behaviors, things you see and hear that are causing the dissonance, causing that problem or that conflict. Then you're getting them also to recognize the things that they're doing, the behaviors that they're doing well. Making eye contact with each other, raising their hand. These are things that if you can teach a group as a facilitator, teach them how to observe the behaviors and not just say, well, we don't trust each other. Well, what are the behaviors that are causing trust issues, right? Talking about someone when they're not there. These are things, you can identify them, then you change, if you change those specific behaviors and you're targeting activities that will get to those specific behaviors, we can reach and help groups reach their goals and objectives faster. So that's another thing. Separate concepts and behaviors. Figure out how that works. Analogy, peanut butter in a jar. It says peanut butter on the outside. That's the concept. But what are the ingredients? What's inside? It's not just peanuts, all right? Depending on the brand, right? It's not just peanuts. It's other things that make up peanut butter. So what are the other things that make up communication, trust, leadership, friendship, respect? These are concepts. What are the little behaviors? That's the second thing. Separate those two. Third thing, I think to be a good facilitator, I think it's going to get into being comfortable asking tough questions, being comfortable with some sort of processing method that you can use to help your groups get into meaningful discussions. There are a lot of fun, interesting prop-based processing tools that can get someone started. I believe that evolving, that's maybe not a good word, progressing to learning how to ask good questions that will help people focus on the learnings they want to get is going to be a tool. It's not one of those easy ones to do right away, but it's learning enough, practicing enough, asking others, watching others to be able to become a good question asker. So I think that's the toughest, but I think if you want to be good at facilitation, if you want to be focused and facilitate on purpose, the idea of asking good questions is going to be really, really important. And that takes time.
Thanks a lot for joining me today, Chris.